And then the NAACP Jubilee celebration on January 4th. And of course, looking forward to the Lewis Freeman groundbreaking coming up as well. We'll go around. Mr. Hunziker?
I have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Bonitz?
I too have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Farrell?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Foley?
Gonna keep with the trend.
Okay. And Commissioner Thurber?
And I will too.
Okay,
Get out quickly.
there we go. Don't say that. All right, up next is public comment. We have 3 people signed up this evening. So when you come up, please state your name and address at the start of your comments. There's a time limit of 3 minutes, which will be displayed on the screen. In the interest of time and fairness, it's the board's policy not to respond directly to comments during this period. Staff will follow up as appropriate. Any speaker with handouts shall be given to the town clerk and will be distributed to the board at the conclusion of the meeting. So up first is Connie McAdams, followed by Arlo Steele.
Name is Connie McAdams, and I live at 597 Austin Chapel Road. Last week, I attended the mandatory community meeting about the newest development proposal for parcel number 60804 on Austin Chapel Road. There were 35 to 40 vocal and concerned citizens in attendance. The property is a completely forested tract of 62 acres surrounded by about 4,000 feet of Robeson Creek. It is zoned RA, and I understand that that means the owner can by right build 1 house per acre as long as they comply with current ordinances. However, this property is also identified in the future land use plan as a natural resources conservation target area, which requires conservation subdivisions. According to that plan, the primary goal of the conservation target area is to protect natural resources with best practices in land use planning, green infrastructure, low impact development, and conservation development design. The new development proposal seems to mostly ignore the parts about protecting natural resources, best practices, green infrastructure, and low impact development. They are calling their plan a conservation design. In it, they intend to leave only 32% of the property untouched and clear cut the rest, building 62 homes on quarter-acre lots, the same number of homes that would be allowed without the conservation design. Although the lots are bigger with fewer houses, the actual footprint of this proposal is almost identical to the plan that was unanimously rejected by the planning board in 2024. We are not impressed. The property is highly valued by the community as a natural resource and a cultural resource. Points of concern at the meeting included clear cutting, stormwater, downstream flooding, traffic, a sewer line across the creek, affordable housing, public access to the creek and historic cemetery, and environmental impacts. 3 minutes is not nearly enough to address all of this. It will probably be several months before this project officially comes to your attention. I know you're all busy with lots of issues to understand and consider, but I want you to be prepared for this one when the time comes. I have a lot more information that I'm happy to share, and I would also like to invite you to come out to Austin Chapel Road and take a look at this property for yourself. I'll be happy to show you around. Thank you for your time and for your service to the town of Pittsboro.
Thank you. Up next is Arlo, followed by Kristen Vieira.
Hello, my name is Arlo Estel, and I'm at 220 Lorax Lane.
And I'm speaking tonight on behalf of my parents, Lyle Estel and Tammy Schwerin, as well as the Tree Museum at the plant. Here's the letter. I would like to ask the town of Pittsboro to conduct more deliberation before deciding on a design for what will be the largest park in town. While it is true that the steering committee met once and had a Zoom call, I do not believe there has been adequate thought given to canopy protection of the existing trees. Today, the 72-acre site, which has been clear cut, is home to a massive amount of understory invasive plants, which are so thick that park planners are unable to see the trees that remain. If you were to eradicate the invasives and pick up the garbage, the proposed park would resemble the grounds of the plant, which is on the other side of the fence. I would like the town to build nothing on the site until the invasives have been removed, such that they can see what they are working with. Today, the town of Pittsboro is experiencing rapid canopy loss, and I believe it is imperative that any park design should take into account existing specimen trees. The Tree Museum would like to ask the town to not approve any built environment until the invasives have been removed. And this is a letter from my dad, but I am in agreement, and we pulled out all the Elaeagnus and the privet at the plant, and it really changes the landscape. And so I would invite you out to check out the park lands at the plant that we have created, and it's very a stark contrast. You can see the parks we've built, and then on the other side, it's a very dense vegetative land. And so I think this would be a good solution. It's a lower cost than clearing everything and building immediately, and kind of maintaining the park, the new parkland, as an ecological preserve, which I think would be really helpful in a town that is losing lots of its canopy. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Kristen Vieira.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Vieira. I'm at 220 Lodox Lane, and I'm going to echo some of the sentiments here and just speak from the heart. First, I'll say I'm excited about this nature park that's going in, and I think it's a great opportunity to demonstrate a really well thought out, intentional, and environmentally conscious nature park that gets the whole town really excited to walk it. And part of doing that is well thought out planning. And part of that is getting boots on the ground and scoping out these gorgeous old growth native tree specimens that are out there. And not only are they crucial for our pollinator species, the birds and insects, it also brings an even more exciting way to go on the nature park and look at these beautiful trees. And it is cost effective because if you first go in there and clear out the invasives and scope out the lay of the land, you're able to design more with the land. And you'll even see that if you clear out a lot of these invasives, such as Elaeagnus, also known as autumn olive, you'll find that it lends itself to big open spaces already. So you can do a mix of going through these old growth trees and also have open fields. So it lends itself to being, that's a cost benefit there as well. So just to echo also, please, in designing this beautiful park, that you first go in, boots on the ground, get to know these gorgeous native trees that we have. And I will leave it at that. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Up next, we have a presentation on the Hillsboro Street Widening Project by NCDOT. Morgan.
Evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Morgan.
We have a presentation. So I just tell you when to change. There's a clicker. Okay.
We're moving up in the world.
Nice, yeah. Thank you. Well, my name is Morgan DeWitt. I'm with NCDOT. I'm the Division 8 Project Team Lead. And today I'm going to be giving an update on the R5724B project, which is widening of Hillsboro Street. So I represent the Project Development Unit here today for Division 8. We have a semi-local office. We oversee 8 counties, Chatham, Randolph, Chatham, Montgomery, Lee, Moore, Hope, Richmond, and Scotland counties. And our office is centrally located in the division in Moore County and Carthage. Okay. Be patient. All right, so this is the B section as part of the overall project R5724. R5724A was completed back in 2021. And that was the roadway and streetscape improvements that we had at the traffic circle. And this is just a B section of that, which is scheduled for later construction for later this year. Public outreach was done for both phases of the project back in 2019. So from Lona Street up to Powell Place Lane and Lowe's Drive, we're widening existing 2-lane, 11-foot lanes to 3-lane section, which will be 12-foot lanes, which includes a center turn lane. Also included in the improvements, we have curb and gutter and subsurface stormwater drainage along the whole corridor. We're improving the 5-foot sidewalk on the west side of the roadway and the 10-foot multi-use path up the east side of the roadway, which will thus be providing pedestrian accommodations on both sides of Hillsboro Street from downtown up to Powell Place and Lowe's Drive. The intersection, roadway, and drainage improvements are also proposed on the side streets. After the project initiated, we've been working with the town for additional improvements in the downtown area, which includes new water and sewer and stormwater infrastructure improvements, streetscapes, and ADA compliant pedestrian accommodations, and also intersection improvements at Hillsboro Street and Salisbury Street. So it's kind of hard to see, but this is the public meeting map that we used when we did public outreach. There's a few things that have been updated since this map, just to touch on, because this just goes from Lonas, around Lonas Drive at Chatham Mills up to Powell Place Lane. We've also incorporated resurfacing and restriping of Hillsboro Street in the downtown area from the traffic circle north to the rest of the project, which has been added. Also, additional sidewalk and downtown intersection and streetscape improvements have been added since this map was generated. And the additional 5-foot sidewalk has been added from Thompson Street north to Lomas to complete that sidewalk connection on the east side. We'll also include a mid-block pedestrian crossing south of Lomas and signalized pedestrian crossings at the intersection of Powell Place. We're undergoing signal modification designs now to accommodate those pedestrian crossings. And since this map was generated, the center turn lane has been decreased from it's hard to see, but it says 16-foot there, but it's actually been reduced to a 12-foot center turn lane to minimize impacts to adjacent property owners. And along the corridor, stormwater will be controlled by a subsurface drainage system to capture stormwater runoff. We've done hydraulic studies of the corridor and designed a subsurface drainage system that will control this in accordance with local, state, and federal guidelines. And this is just kind of a typical street section of what it will look like once construction improvements are implemented. The pedestrian facilities will provide a full connection from downtown Pittsboro up to Powell Place on both sides of Hillsboro Street. Please note that south of the initial project from downtown to Lonas Drive, there will be portions of the east side where there will only be a 5-foot sidewalk instead of the proposed 10-foot multi-use path shown here. This is to avoid impacts to the historic resources in the downtown area.
One question. You said the east side, sidewalk coming from Thompson will be 5 foot. How is that going to affect the houses that have rock landscaping down through there?
So those are, we had historic surveys done through that area, and those are historic structures that we are not going to impact. So the sidewalk will narrow up between those little walls.
Okay.
Those rock structures, and then once we get north of that, it'll widen out to the multi-use.
All right. Thank you.
This is the project schedule. As you can see, we've been working on this project for a while and we're excited to get close to the finish line. We finished right-of-way acquisition of the whole project, and we're now working with private utility owners to relocate their facilities prior to construction starting. Duke Energy has completed the relocation of their poles and their power facilities. The goal was to complete all utility relocation by this spring, but we do anticipate that recently there may be some delays with that due to the relocation of 2 gas lines that we're working with the gas company on, and also telecoms that need to relocate on Duke's poles. We anticipate that this will likely affect our schedule. We were targeting for letting the project in July for construction, but it'll likely get pushed back a few months because of those delays. There's an estimated 26-month construction duration for the project to be completed. Hillsboro Street, of the downtown area, will remain at least partially open with at least 1 lane throughout construction, and no off-site detour will be required. Property owners along the corridor will be able to access their driveways throughout construction, and their mailboxes will be made accessible for the duration of construction. Now, this is an overview of the downtown portion that we've recently added to the project. The intersection of Hillsboro Street and Salisbury Street will be improved for ADA compliant pedestrian access with signalized crosswalks. The brick sidewalks along both sides of downtown will be improved for safer pedestrian experience. We are working with the town to go ahead and replace the ineffective underground sewer and stormwater infrastructure as part of this project. We understand that this will be a significant inconvenience for the downtown businesses, and this way all improvements can be done at one time. There is not a proposed crosswalk, as you can see, at Hank Street and Thompson Street intersection due to the center turn lane that will be retained going northbound onto Hanks Street. We removed this crosswalk because we wanted to encourage pedestrians to go down Salisbury Street and cross at a much safer signalized 2-lane section instead of that 3 lanes right there at that location. Prior to starting work in the downtown area, the selected contractor will be required to meet with DOT, the town, and the local business owners. The contractor will be required for a detailed plan on how they will maintain access to businesses throughout construction. This construction will be completed between January and September of 2027. We've added in the contract that no work can be done through the months of October through December to interfere with downtown events and holiday events. So I'm just going to go through a brief kind of phasing of how the downtown construction is going to look. We won't know for sure until we let the contract and have a contractor to work with, but it is going to be significant impacts. So we'd like to be transparent and kind of let you know how we're going to face that work. The first phase of Hillsboro Street will be closed completely for the installation of underground water and sewer infrastructure and the stormwater drainage system. This work will only be done during 9 hours with an off-site detour with proper signage on all approaches. Each day, traffic will be opened on Hillsboro Street, maintaining the existing 2-lane, 2-way pattern. The contractor will have 90 days to complete this work. Once that phase is complete, the second phase of construction will begin, which will install the new brick sidewalks, curb and gutter, driveways, curb ramps, retaining walls, steps, railings, and pedestrian signals on the west side of Hillsboro Street. Only the southbound lane will be closed during this phase of construction, and a local detour will be provided. Parking on the west side of Hillsboro Street will be closed during this phase of construction, and the existing 2-lane, 2-way traffic will be reopened at the end of each day. The contractor is required to provide a detailed plan of how they plan to provide access to the local businesses on the west side of Hillsboro Street during this phase. When that phase is complete, phase 3 will begin, which is basically the same thing, but on the east side. And it'll include the new brick sidewalks, curb and gutter, driveways, curb ramps, walls and steps and railings, and pedestrian signals on the east side of Hillsboro Street. During this phase, only the northbound lane will be closed and a local detour will be provided. The existing 2-lane, 2-way traffic pattern will be reopened at the end of each day. Again, with other phases, the contractor is required to provide a detailed plan of how they plan to provide access to the business on the west side of Hillsboro Street during this phase. And once all that's complete, we'll have the final phase, which consists of the final asphalt overlay and new pavement markings and striping for parking. And that will require temporary lane closures, one lane at a time. We understand the impact that this will have temporarily on the downtown area, but we believe the long-term effects will outweigh these inconveniences. Once the contract is awarded, we will ensure that everyone is well informed with the town of the downtown phasing prior to we start construction. And that's all I have for this project update.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes. Morgan, thank you so much for the presentation. It is really just very encouraging to see how much this has improved and hearing about it. It's been a long time in the works. Commissioner Pamela Baldwin informed us that she'd been advocating for the sidewalk since 2009. So it's really great to see it finally coming together. And I think a lot of us are really anticipating it getting done.
Mm-hmm.
The sidewalk on the east side going into downtown, that was a complete surprise. I had no idea that that was going to happen. So that's wonderful. The streetscape improvements in the downtown area are fantastic. I'm so glad we squeezed those in somehow. And of course, modernizing the underground sewer and water is it's about life safety. So that's terrific. Also really pleased that the work is going to be scheduled outside the holiday shopping season. Thank you. Thank you so much. I do have some questions. I had hoped that we would get a deeper dive on what kind of stormwater measures would be implemented with the project. I think it's noteworthy that there's going to be more than an acre of new impervious surface derived from the widening of this highway and this Hillsboro Street and the sidewalks. And specifically, I'm curious about what I've heard is a draining and perhaps elimination of a natural pond at Springdale. So, but what can you tell us about how we're going to do better with stormwater?
It's on that. Yes, to answer your question, there is a pond that it's being impacted just north of Chatham Mills, I think. Is that what you're referring to?
Is it the little one to the south or is it the larger one closer to Springdale?
Springdale and Chatham Mills, south of Springdale.
I think I've seen on the map that there's a little teeny tiny pond and then there's a larger one that is visible from the street. So if it's
just that pond, one, the one south of Springdale on the east side will be drained. It will. And we've been working with the Army Corps of Engineers and NCDOT on the permitting for that. And we recently received our regional general permit 50 from the Army Corps. And the impacts from that pond were accounted for in our approved mitigation plan. So we will be mitigating elsewhere within the watershed per NCDOT's mitigation services permit for that drainage.
Can you help us understand the need for draining that pond?
It was just in the impacts. I mean, it was in the impact area of the widening. So while the sidewalk may not go right up to where the pond is, we have to grade to get up to that point, and our slopes can only be 3 to 1 in most cases. So to get that slope to where it's not so steep, you kind of have to back out. And so then therefore it impacted that.
So it's almost a filling rather than a draining of the pond?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that. From a permitting standpoint, they really just look at it as if you're eliminating the pond.
It has to be mitigated.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I raise this concern specifically is that so much of this part of town drains into an unnamed creek that has numerous times flooded Oakwood Drive. And along Park Drive also. And my hope is that we can think outside the box and think creatively to actually create additional stormwater retention best management practices, BMPs, or what are the SCEs, above and beyond what is called for in the law. And I can't speak for the board, but as one commissioner, I'd very much like to ask what can the town do to help that in that direction, because it seems like it's an opportunity for some low cost implementations, but I'm not an expert.
Yeah, we've done a lot of hydraulic analysis, especially around that culvert and Park Drive, because I'm well aware too that that area floods, and it is in the FEMA regulated floodplain, and then downstream from this area as well. And we really took a deep dive into the hydraulic analysis on that. So DOT projects are different than, site plan development, because it's linear. So the drainage area, it may not, while it might be an acre of impacts, there's not one drainage area. It's over the course of 2 miles. So there's not really one area that's getting all that water flow. But so there's, in most cases, DOT doesn't really do stormwater retention ponds for that reason, and also because of the impacts. We already reduced the center turn lane down 4 feet, so we would avoid impacting properties. Fortunately, we only had to take one property for this corridor, and if we were to implement ponds, along the corridor, we would have to do more relocations with that property owners. So that's another reason, but just to kind of give you a background on how DOT operates stormwater regulations, for DOT to add a retention device, it would have to be significant impacts. It would either be a substantial increase in the pre versus the post-development flow rate, so it has to be at least a 10%. And for the 50-year storm event and on this corridor around that floodplain area, the greatest increase was 1.62% in that pre and post development. So we're well below that threshold. Also, a lot of that area is in the floodplain. And in order to kind of trigger that stormwater measure being needed, it would have to be at least a 1-foot rise in the FEMA regulated floodplain. It varies along this area anywhere from 0.04 to 0.13, but the highest increase is 0.13 feet. So it's significantly lower than that 1-foot threshold. So I know while it sounds like it's, an acre of impacts, it's really stretched out along that 1.8 miles of roadway with various drainage outlet points there. So after our hydraulic analysis, we determined that no stormwater measures were needed along the corridor. Ponds, I mean. But we will have a subsurface drainage system with curb and gutter to capture runoff and control that accordingly. Any more questions?
I
just have one more. Morgan, the Park Drive, what is detailed on, it looks like to me that Park Drive is going not quite all the way back to Circle Drive improvements. Are we having any kind of center turn lane on Park Drive?
Right here. Yeah, it does go back, not quite to Center Drive, and I can send you these plans later if you want to look at them. But we will have, it'll be 3 lanes as you're coming up Park Drive, and you'll have a designated left turn and a right turn, and then you'll have your incoming onto Park. But it'll have a left turn lane going northbound.
That's going to interfere with that drain and culvert that's down in there to where we're having the flooding problem.
We're going to improve all the drainage on that part that we're going. It's a couple hundred feet, I think, down Park Drive, and we're going to redo all the drainage under that roadway.
Can you explain what exactly you'll do there? Is it a retention pond or?
No, it'll have curb and gutter, and it'll have like box inlets to trap that water with large pipes under the ground to capture that water. But again, going back to the stormwater, if we were to put a stormwater pond there, we would have to acquire some right-of-way acquisition for that. And it's also in the FEMA regulated floodplain. And as part of their regulations, it's typically not permissible to put a stormwater retention pond in the FEMA regulated floodplain. They have a lot of requirements from a federal standpoint if you were to do that.
And what does safety look like on the new sidewalks, with all of the driveways? What is the safety measures for the pedestrians walking or riding the bike path?
I don't know if it'll let me back up.
There's a lot of driveways on that.
Yes, there is. And I was going to try to show you, we'll have like a vegetated buffer between the back of curb and where the sidewalk is. So going north, on the west side, there'll be a 4.5-foot vegetated buffer, and on the east side, there'll be a 9-foot vegetated buffer. Except for where we get, where it's really tight, where those historic walls are towards the downtown area, that we'll have to kind of narrow in right there. But through majority of the corridor, there'll be a vegetated buffer between the back of curb. And the sidewalk will be raised up a little bit too, from where the elevation of the roadway is.
And can you describe for us about the pedestrian crosswalk at Powell Place? So is it going to be a timed, is it going to be a light switch that you can push for pedestrians?
Well, yes, we're actually in the process of designing the permit or the signal modification for that whole signalized intersection. That initially was not part of the scope of the project, but because we extended the sidewalks all the way up, we'll have a crossing. I think I have a picture of it up there, but there'll be a signalized crossing on the south, north to south, and then east to west on the Powell Place side. And it'll have the ADA compliant curb ramps as well. Questions?
Yeah. The some odds and ends, I'll touch base with the first one, is closer to the downtown. You mentioned that there was a decision not to install a crosswalk, rather to favor having the crosswalk farther down at Salisbury.
Mm.
Yeah. And as I've been walking and biking and driving in downtown in recent years, it seems really clear that Thompson Street, Hank Street, that the traffic has increased so much that it really seems to want a traffic light there rather than at Salisbury. But what is the process for that outside of this 5724 project? What does the process look like for asking for a study of signalized intersection?
Yeah, and you can certainly do that. A lot of municipalities will do that, and we can study it and see, what kind of improvements. Well, first we'll do a traffic study to see how the traffic volumes are there and if it's in peak times and kind of what that looks like. And then from there, we'll look at what alternatives there could be. We do have a special pot of money for safety projects. It's very small compared to these kinds of projects. And we have a need across 8 counties, but it's definitely something we can evaluate if the town is interested in that. And then, of course, you always have the option to go to an RPO and submit that as an improvement project if you would like to.
Thank you. That might be a part an answer to the next question. So when I first was introduced to this idea, I was just so very enthusiastic about the sidewalks and the multi-use path. It didn't even occur to me to ask about how this might connect with the rest of town. And it's just intuitive that on the south side, it connects perfectly. But on the north side, we've got the overpass. And so effectively what we're doing is we're installing this marvelous, wonderful bike ped infrastructure that goes not nowhere, but folks who want to get to Mosaic or the shopping or the high school. Someone has expressed great interest in biking to school. We're not going to allow him to cross that overpass over the bypass. But what can we do to begin working on a solution to that gap?
Yeah, I mean, it's never too early to start that process if you're wanting to start a new project. So I would recommend the first step would be to get with your RPO and just kind of talk that out. We do have a new round of the STIP every couple of years where you can submit new projects. All municipalities have that opportunity. They are requiring moving forward. I believe that you have to have some kind of preliminary, not really a feasibility study, but an express design where the RPO can assist you with that, just to kind of show like rough cost estimates and if you were to propose improvements, what those would look like. But the RPO would be a great place to start.
I'll bring that up, Commissioner Bonds.
I think that'd be great. It seems pretty conspicuous that we've got on that overpass a center turn lane that's empty and unoccupied. Near my workplace, near NC State University, there's a bridge passing over a railway that had a similar situation, and they just moved the paint and set some protections for multi-use path. And I'm envisioning Jersey walls. It seems like it could get done fairly simply without having to actually change the structure of the bridge. So I'd love if we could think harder about that. And then that brings me to the question of speed limit, because we have so many wrecks in front of the high school, going from the high school down across the overpass at Lowe's and the entrance to Powell Place. That's all 45, even though it's a school zone. And then it's 45 halfway into this project where it turns to 35. And when I was knocking doors in this neighborhood 10 years ago, in 2015, one of the most frequently requested concerns was lowering the speed limit in that section of neighborhood. We have since moved the truck route. My understanding is that the highway designation Highway 15501 will be moved once Chatham Parkway North and South are complete. So it seems like we're planning for this to be considered and deemed to be a local residential street, but we're still building it as if it's a highway. How can we get to 35?
Yeah, so I think the question we kind of need to think about is, do we want new speed limit signs or do we want people to slow down? Because that can be two different things, right? So this new project with improvements, it was designed to be 45 miles per hour as it is existing. But we do have, there are some options there. But the new alignment, it's being widened from 11-foot lanes to 12-foot lanes. And then when you add in the 12-foot center turn lane, drivers tend, when we have one, I think it's just human nature, you're driving on a wider road, people tend to drive faster just because it's more roomy, they feel like they're a little safer. So I think just changing the speed limit signs won't really solve that problem. But what the town can do, and DOT has done this with a few other municipalities in Division 8, once the project is completed and implemented and open for local traffic, the town can request formally to NCDOT that you would like to reduce the speed limit to 35. And that's done by submitting a resolution from your board to DOT to consider a reduction in the speed down to 35 if that's what you desire. And the division engineer will review that request and meet with the town. And if the town can commit to providing the necessary enforcement along that corridor, then that speed limit can be potentially be changed if approved. It's really a joint effort between DOT and local enforcement to ensure a safer facility and to lower speeds.
Let me just ask you a question about, you said by having the 12-foot lanes, that kind of subconsciously gets people to increase their speeds, right?
Well, that's what we've seen.
So if the lanes were not 12 feet, would that then kind of naturally reduce speeds and then perhaps make it safer? Because if we are having all this pedestrian traffic and we have 45-mile-an-hour and nobody goes the speed limit, people trying to back out of their driveways or pull out of their driveways, would it not be better then to make those lanes a little narrower to then, as you said, basically would make them drive slower?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can't control how people drive, obviously, but I think that extra foot while we're in here improving it is important because it does give you an extra lift on pedestrians on both sides. And, I think the biggest thing here is just we can lower the speed limit signs, but the biggest thing is enforcement. I think it just kind of has to be a joint effort between the town and DOT.
I appreciate, Commissioner Hunziker, I appreciate you bringing that up because from what I've been reading, Mr. Witt, you're exactly right, that the psychology of modern traffic engineering is recognizing that when we build roads wide and with nothing near, no street trees near, there's just a natural inclination to go faster. And so I'm really eager for us to do all that we can to calm traffic. And so that's why I guess it's now 3 or 4 years ago that I did request that we narrow that center lane. I'm really glad that we got it from 16 feet down to 12. And I did request 10, but we can't have everything. But I hope let me ask it a different way. How can this board demonstrate more convincingly to NCDOT that we're serious about zero fatalities and that we're serious about calming traffic and we're serious about minimizing pavement in new projects when necessary and appropriate?
I mean, I think the town has done their part, and I think DOT has that same goal. We want zero fatalities as well. When this was a US route, there were some limitations, but like you said, this is an SR route now. So we do have some flexibility with the speed limits. Once the project is complete, if we want to investigate that is something we can work together on.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. This is very helpful.
Thanks, Morgan.
Up next, we have a presentation on our audit from SharpePatel.
Good evening. My name is Jay Sharp. I'm the partner in charge for the town's audit. I'm here to present the 2025 audit. So first thing I will start with is the status of everything. Field work has been completed. The financial statements have been prepared and they have been submitted to the local government commission for reviews. They were submitted on time. We were just waiting for their final review and then we will issue the audit for 2025. One thing I always like to talk about, just a little bit about our roles and objectives as auditors. I always like to joke that I used to teach a class at Wake Tech, so I can talk about this for 32 hours, but I'm sure you don't want to hear about audits for 32 hours. We don't just come in and start crunching numbers at the beginning. There's some planning procedures we do that's involving internal controls, getting an update of any internal control policies, Testing internal controls. We tested controls over 3 areas, cash disbursements, payroll, and credit cards. And we do some other planning procedures. But we do all this because we have to do what we call a risk-based audit approach when it comes to the audit. We're assessing risk to all the significant financial reporting areas the town has. Cash, revenues, expenses. We're going to concentrate our audit efforts on the higher risk areas, but we do look at every significant financial reporting area the town does have. And so we do all of that because as auditors, we have to gain sufficient audit evidence to render an opinion on financial statements. That's why you hire us to give an opinion, and that opinion concentrates on whether the financial statements are materially correct or not. So 32 hours worth of teaching into a couple minutes. So the results of the 2025 audit, I think you'll be happy with these. Scope and timing of the audit, we're on track. No issues there. The opinion I just talked about. Once again, the town received an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's a clean audit opinion. The best opinion you can receive. So good news there. Now, if during our audit procedures, we know any issues, whether it has to do with internal controls or financial reporting, we're required to report those in the form of findings. There's 2 levels of findings, material weaknesses, which are the more harsher, and significant deficiencies. I'm happy to report there were no findings for 2025. You had 1 finding in 2024, that was correct. So good news there. As a result of our audit procedures, we just had some routine audit adjustments, nothing significant, some adjustments provided by the town. But kind of summarize, clean audit opinion, no findings for 2025.
Can you remind us what the finding in 24 was?
That was an over expenditure of the budget.
Oh, yeah, pulling from fund balance.
Had to do with our lease.
That's right.
We had to move.
Count for a lease.
Yep.
Okay.
It was a rule change that we were not aware of. So the revenue was there, the expenditure was there, but the revenue wasn't for the full term of the lease. But that's been fixed.
Yeah, lease standard change, and unfortunately, a good number of towns got caught up in that. Not the only one. So we saw that. That was probably our number 1 finding in the last couple of years. In addition to the audit, we're required to issue a separate letter. I call this communications letter. It's addressed to the board. There's 4 main talking points with this letter. The first one, any major accounting policy changes or standard changes, we're required to report those to you. There was one for 2025, GASB 101, compensated absences. So previously, any governmental unit was required to accrue for vacation. They've changed the rules where it just kind of accrues for anything, any time off. PTO, comp time, sick leave was a big thing. But the rules are you don't have to accrue for 100% of it, or you don't have to accrue for any of it if you meet certain standards within that rule they've sent out. And so that didn't affect your financials, but it is a new standard that you had to implement for 2025. One of the areas we pay close attention to during the audit process are the numbers derived from management's estimates. You have 2 key estimates, the depreciable lives and capital assets, and the allowance for doubtful accounts. We looked at those. Those appeared reasonable. No issues there. Happy to report no disagreements with management, no difficulties encountered whatsoever during the audit process. We had complete cooperation from Heather and everybody at the town during the audit process.
That's good. That's always good.
We appreciate that because we don't always get cooperation from everybody. Heather always gives it to us. So now I'll end our presentation talking about the numbers. First of all, let's talk about the general fund. So this is kind of a trend analysis going back to 2016, general fund's revenues and expenditures. You can kind of see the growth of the town by the fact that the revenues and expenditures have gone up, and they did go up in 2025. Your revenues were about $11.7 million. Your expenditures were just over $11 million. So they did substantially increase compared to 2024. But also the good news is you had more revenues and expenditures during 2025. And that'll be reiterated on this next graph. This is the fund balance in the general fund, which once again goes back to 2016. 2016, you had $4.2 million in fund balance. At the end of 2025, you have $7.2 million in fund balance. So a $3 million increase in fund balance in about a 10-year span. So a healthy trend there, healthy growth by the town. But what is important is what that fund balance is made up of. And so you have 3 categories. The smallest piece there, about $25,000, is non-spendable. These are prepaid expenses that you've already paid for. And so you can't spend them again, those funds again. The red there is restricted by general statute. Those are funds that you have not received yet. They're due from other governments like sales tax, things like that. Yet you have not received it. You received after year end. But general statutes say that if you don't have the funds, you can't spend them. And so that's why they're restricted until you do spend them. But the most crucial piece is that green piece. That is unassigned fund balance, almost $4.9 million. That's available to be spent by the town. And one of the calculations we do is comparing that to your expenditures. That unassigned fund balance made up 44% of your 2025 expenditures. What that indicates is you have a healthy fund balance. Anything between 20 and 30 is considered healthy. Anything above that's really healthy. So you've got a really nice fund balance in place. So nothing to be concerned about there at the end of 2025. Now we'll talk about the revenues and expenditures. First of all, revenues. What makes up your revenues for 2025? The three biggest pieces of the pie, first of all, property taxes was 48%. Other taxes and licenses, 24%. And then let's see, sales and services were 18%. So those are the three biggest pieces of the pie. And I also wanted to do analysis, kind of compare this year versus last year, where you've seen growth. Like I said, your revenues did go up substantially, $9.2 million last year to $11.7 million. The biggest two variances were property taxes went up about $950,000 and sales and services 1.2. But overall, you had a 27% increase in your revenues for 2025 compared to 2024.
One question for,
Yes, sir.
just for clarification, on our sales and service, that increase was on that parkland, correct? Is that where we're getting that from?
I think the timing, yes. I believe so.
That's a yes,
Back to you.
sir.
We'll find out and we'll get back to you.
One of the things we also do is when we calculate some liquidity ratios for towns is we look at cash reserves. We're looking at your unrestricted cash compared to your expenditures, and how healthy is your cash reserve in place. And so we generally recommend towns to have 3 to 6 months in cash reserves. I think right there we put a line across that indicates 120 days, which is kind of in between that. And you kind of see where that falls over the course of the last 10 years. For 2025, your cash reserves was 192 days. Your cash actually went up, but your expenditures also went up. So that's why calculation went down, but still very healthy cash reserves over half a year there. Well above that 120 days. So you can kind of see it goes up and down throughout the years. A lot of that depends on your expenditures on an annual basis, which a lot of that's geared toward capital projects and things like that. But a very healthy cash reserve in place at year end. And finally, I want to, cash flows, this kind of indicates where your cash flows came from during the year. This actually isn't on the audit. It's just something in additional analysis. So there's three areas of cash flows: operating activities, which is general government operations; investing activities, which is purchases of capital assets; and then financing activities, which is either payments or proceeds from debt. So you can kind of see where your cash went and came from during the year. Overall, a net increase in cash of $2.3 million compared to 2024. The most important thing is the majority of that did come from operating activities. And finally, we'll talk about the expenditures breakdown here. Number one expenditure item continues to be public safety at 38%, general government 31%, and then 15% in transportation. And once again, variance analysis there, you can kind of see 24 versus 25. We did see about a $1.7 million increase in expenditures. Quite a few here. General government, public safety, and transportation all went up substantially compared to 2024. Some of that had to do with capital project spending. But with that, I'll be glad to take any questions you have on the results of the audit process, or the numbers themselves.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sharp?
I have just one. All the years that I've been on the board, I've been real impressed with our cash reserves. Last year at 222 days and 192. Is this possibility because of not having an enterprise fund now? Is that?
No, this is the general fund. The enterprise fund would be presented separately. I would have done a separate calculation for that in prior years. That has nothing to do with it.
Okay, so, all right, my question is maybe for staff is, why we dropped off almost 6 months?
Because our expenses have increased.
And no revenue, correct?
Well, I mean, revenues increased, but I mean, the cash has increased at a slower amount than
Right.
in the expenses.
Okay.
So our fund balance has kind of stayed a little bit flat, but our expenditures have gone up at a higher amount than the cash on hand. So then the days that you have cash sitting around, it's going to decrease naturally. But the larger your budget, the less cash typically you're going to have percentage wise in the bank. Because like if your budget's 50 million a year, you're not going to have 50% fund balance, because then everyone's going to wonder why you have $25 million in the bank.
Right.
So as our expenditures and budget grow over time, that percentage will also decrease over time. Now the amount will go up, but the percentage will start to kind of trickle down.
Okay.
We're still well above the recommendation. We were just well above.
We were very well over, yeah. And to my dismay, that's what I like. I'm sorry. So, but that's okay.
But the orange line, we added an orange line.
That's
That's kind of where Heather feel like we should be. That's like our bare minimum. So we're not quite double of where we want to be, but I think we're still.
that orange line is the 3 months, correct?
That is 4 months.
120 days, yeah.
Yeah, it's 4 months.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just say I appreciate
Thank you, appreciate it.
App and Heather's work on this, that gives us a healthy fund balance, that gives us some flexibility with things like when property purchases come up, stuff like that, that we can be flexible and have those reserves. So thank you. Thank
You
you.
have to make sure Heather is watching Jonathan spending.
Sitting next to him.
Believe me, that's
Thank
happening.
you.
Okay, up next, we have a update on the master plan for the Robeson Walk Park.
Jay, we'll get you an answer to that question. We'll get you an answer to that question.
I was pretty sure that's what it is. I don't think so.
Check and let you know.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update, and I want to make sure that I clarify that this little presentation this is not a final draft. This is not saying that this is going to happen. This presentation and the design that I'm going to be walking through is solely based off of the feedback that we have gotten from the community. So go ahead and start. So we've had 2 public meetings. We've had a steering committee. One was in person, one after the initial feedback where we were presented 2 concepts, which you'll see here in a moment, was conducted over Zoom to get feedback on as well. I'd like to say this 72-acre park is more of our passive park, not as active. In recreation, your active parks are more of athletic facilities, tournament complexes, things like that, whereas your passive are more walking trails. And walking trails and bike paths and more relaxing and focusing on multi-generational functions a lot more than maybe like your tournaments that are like specific youth oriented, right? So I especially think that as we grow and we receive more and more land, we need to make sure that we are keeping that balance of active and passive parks so that we are making sure that we are reaching everyone and providing services for everyone in the community. So in the fall, we had conducted our first public meeting and we got a lot of feedback. We had some poster boards that were up that we had people put sticky notes on, or hey, what are we looking at? We had visual pictures for that. Then we created a little bit of a design of 2 different options where we had people come. So here is what we've heard. We had a website to where people could also submit a survey. Total in-person visitors, 147 adults, 38 children over the 2 public meetings. And then we had online participants, 64 commenters, and 243 comments. So overall, family friendly, wanted all ages, multi-generational, accessible and inclusive, connectivity, water access, and more natural and ecological, which you find in more passive parks, right? There, again, we're not clear cutting, right? That's not what this park is. We are more passive and we are wanting to lean into the landscape to create that more natural atmosphere. So based on the feedback, we then, after the first really public engagement methods and with our stakeholders, we came up with two concepts. One was way more passive and geared, not as like you're more extreme passive, right? And then one was, hey, we can have some more active spaces without it being out of the like passive category, if that makes sense. So the second round of feedback was in the public meeting especially, we had people that came in and you could vote on one concept, but we wanted to make sure that we got feedback on both of them. So even if they said, I'm voting for this one, if they liked other features on the one that they didn't vote for, we wanted to make sure to collect that. So from that information and feedback, we created one overall design. So we merged a lot of that feedback together. And again, I want to preface that this was based on the engagement, one of the things that are going forward. So this is a draft. I wanted to get direction from y'all and see if there was anyone that felt really passionate one way or the other about things, so that if we need to make some changes, we can. Then the next phase would be, okay, now we go to the final design to where we can, so that we can get cost estimates for what this would actually look like, right? So I think that the biggest thing that we wanted to keep in mind when creating these designs is to make sure that we have phased approaches, right? This is not meaning that, oh, we're going to build this park all at once. I don't think that that's realistic. What I do think is that we need to, like many different parks that we've had, is we need to have that phased approach, maybe a little bit at a time. You do that starting with the parking lot and us doing some natural trails throughout the park, and then maybe conducting another phase. But before we get that, I want to make sure that we have feedback. Again, this is based off of our public feedback. I wanted to get you all's feedback too, to see if this was something to, hey, let's move forward with getting some cost estimates, or hey, let's tweak some things. Up to y'all.
Okay.
Here we go.
Well,
Feedback.
okay. It looks, for me, there's so many things that remind me, like, I think I selected most of the things on here when I was walking around and doing this. I love the tree houses, the hammocks is speaking my name. But one thing I'm looking at just this, I'm wondering if we don't need a bigger tree buffer, because we are going to have houses built almost up to this, and I can see someone being in a tree house waving to the person in their backyard. So I'm wondering if that doesn't need to be made a little bit bigger. The other thing I just want to mention, because Arlo still came and spoke, I walked the plant yesterday, and it does look like a before and after and that's what just kept being pointed out to me. And there were some absolutely amazing trees that I could see on our side. And I do believe that what they were suggesting is with the invasive eradication will actually allow us to see what we're working with. And it may in some way design itself if we take that time to do that invasive eradication. And I guess, let's see, there's some other point that I was wondering if we could get a current aerial view of the park to see, because I've heard some parts are clear cut. You said, no, we're not clear cut. So if we could get, I tried to go on Google Earth and try to get a better idea of the park. Is that something that we could possibly
We
get?
can definitely look. I'll see.
But there are so many things that I really do like about this, because I want to make sure that it's a park that not just they built it, they will come, hopefully. I want it to be a park that people just want to come to, and I think we're definitely getting there.
To that point too, is especially you think about master plans, right? Is we can have some of these concepts, right? That's kind of just a direction that we're going into. I think one of the things that, at least for myself, would prioritize of, hey, if we get in there and we see some things that are like, oh man, this is really beautiful. Like we can pivot a little bit, right? And that's not, we've walked the site several times, and we walked with our consultants as well a couple of times with that of, and just knowing that, yes, whereas this kind of gives us an idea and a master plan of a general direction, if we get in there and we find some different things of like, oh, we can absolutely pivot a little bit to make sure that we can really enhance what we have already.
I would say in terms of the satellite data, the county GIS has a 2025 data on there.
Oh.
Be recent.
I was
Not
looking,
on Google or,
I was trying Google Earth, and it was sliding the.
and they have the historical
Okay.
stuff too, but 2025 is pretty representative of what's out there.
Do we know what time of year it was?
Looks like fall, but
Winter.
I don't see a date. I like all these concepts as well, in the mesh of it between the different options. And I just want to kind of reiterate for everyone that this isn't something that we're going to be able to afford anytime soon, or afford in a whole anytime soon either. So even the plans, the cost estimates will help us plan that out. And then, I imagine it would be a parking lot and a building, and then a play structure, and then, things as other priorities compete with parkland. One question I had on this was the kayak canoe access upstream of the dam there, and it's kind of low water anyway, but can you talk about that?
Yes, they actually did some more research after we had walked through everything, right? So it's shallow, right? Having that, I wanted to make sure that we kept that on there, because that was a lot of the feedback that we got, right? So I felt like we were doing a disservice if we just immediately wrote that off. So you can kayak canoe, it at least has to be a minimum of 1 foot depth, right? Which is there. Now, if we wanted to make the quality better for a better experience, we would have to do some work to the creek area in order for that to happen. I wanted to keep that on there as that is an option. It's going to, by the time we get there, who knows where we'll be at, if that's still a need. But considering the amount of feedback that we got that we're saying that we want kayak canoe water access, I felt like we would be doing a disservice not to have that on there. But knowing that would be a cost to make sure that it would be up to the standards of having a quality experience if you're going to kayak or canoe there.
So would you walk the kayak from the parking lot down to that access point? Okay.
Which is another great point.
And is the creek even wide enough to turn a canoe in there? Is it?
There may be some like tighter spaces, but we walked pretty much that creek, and it was the part where it says the kayak canoe water access to the rocky water access. It was pretty wide.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
20 feet, like 40 feet?
I'm not good with
30 maybe?
Okay.
I'd say
The length of a canoe.
Yeah, I mean, you could fit.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was a great question from me, because farther upstream, when I've walked our greenway, it does not seem really wide enough.
Yeah, that's why it really stops right there. It doesn't go all the way up.
It does. It looks like about 40 on the GIS.
Oh, great.
And from being in it as well.
Okay, thank you. And when you say that there might be additional work, I think I'm hearing investment cost to make it more amenable to voting. What would that look like?
I'm not sure that's why we would need the cost estimates for it. Is they would, whenever we move to that next phase to look at what the cost estimate, that will be included for that. But they would, I'm not sure exactly what that looks like and how they would make it, but from my understanding is they would need to, there looks like there has been some beavers that have been along there, so that have built up several different things to make the water in some places like stand still, right? So we'd have to focus on that, and then that's getting the equipment back there to be able to focus on that, right? So the cost estimates, if that is something that we want to pursue, would be included in the next phase.
Right. And another big question for me was, as we were thinking about this parking, I think you said we might like make that as a first step, that making it accessible for vehicles to park and then for people to access. Well, first of all, I would very much like us to program food trucks and utilities like that in a much later phase, because we've already got food service at Lorax Lane and the plant. It's conceivable that once the surrounding residential development reaches 1,000 or 1,200 units, of course, that there would be sufficient demand for food service that the plant might be overwhelmed. And so food trucks might be a welcome addition over on the other side of the park. But that is a concern for me. And then I'm wondering, could we phase the parking paving, like maybe just have it gravel at first with grassy beside it, with the long-term plan of then adding parking once demand reaches?
So I think the only challenge with that is per our own UDO standards that we aren't able to have a gravel lot, that it has to be a paved lot, but I'm not sure what that looks like. So I will.
I've been wanting to fix that for a while, so let's make note of that. Yeah.
I hear you on that aspect. There's been several times where I'm like, oh, we should put just a gravel lot here. And I have been told that's not allowed.
Okay.
So 20,000 foot view. We have this gifted land that is going to be a great asset to us and to the plant also. I can see day trips, family excursions, outings going to the plant and either ending up in the park or starting in the park and ending up at the plant. I don't see any connection. There is one connection with the plaza entry, is that correct?
Yes.
And if I have a stroller, et cetera, I think it might be easier to enter the plant or the park further north. Well, I'm just thinking about day trips and making an event of it. I would love to picnic at the pond and then cool down or get your cool beverages at the plant. So how can we make sure that those are integrated?
So if you also look up near the multipurpose field.
The trail?
Right there, that is a connection as well to the plant. Because what we wanted to make sure that we do is have complete access and encourage people. So especially when you're looking at greenways and connections, you want loops, right? You want one main loop, but then you want to go and give everyone options. So if you have a meeting or if you have a doctor's appointment, I can only get in a little bit of a run or something, then you can go smaller loops, or if I want to go for a longer run, I have a little bit more time, then I could go for the larger loop, right? So a lot of all these spaces that we're seeing is that we have connections from the neighborhood and from the other and overflow parking at the top, and then the full connectivity
Okay.
through the greenway trails that would be.
Ideally, what I'd love to see is a trail between, on the east side of the multipurpose field, right smack in
There
the
is
middle of it.
connection there.
There is a connection.
The gate,
It's right there.
Okay,
fence, but
okay.
are we programming that?
Not seeing that,
Are we
It's showing,
where the asterisk is.
it's on the diagram. There's a,
Yeah, there's a tiny little cutout. It's hard to see on this, but there is a cutout right there where multipurpose field, that little circle, that is also an access point to the as well.
Yeah.
As the plaza entry.
Okay. Super. And so the thought process is, this is going to be over a series of years because of budgeting. Is that correct?
Sorry.
It's our first park coming into Pittsboro from the east. And it's a wonderful space. So how would then we process on a regular basis, considering what else we need to spend to get to where we want to be? Is it going to be a schedule? Is it going to be, how are we going to do this?
Yeah, so we have a little bit, Jonathan and I have been working over the past couple of years, a list of our projects of our existing parks, what we have coming down the line, and what the schedule of, inventory of replacement and also enhancements. What we will do is probably come to y'all here in the next couple of months as well to help us prioritize of what y'all's priorities are.
Our broader approach, with the South Village Small Area Plan, now that we know broadly where the other parks are going to go. And Katie, in the last 3 years, I want to say the master plan that we currently have is at like 92% completion, which means it's time to do another one. Because some of the items that we can't quite get done are large scale projects that will be in the millions. So it's time to redo that. And then certainly for you all to figure out what your priorities are in terms of funding. So that'll be a discussion that we'll probably end up including in the next budget meeting.
and I think overall, we are currently park land rich and park feature poor. And that will get worse before it gets better. Park land rich is a great thing to have. But we're not going to have the funds to fit out all of these things. So these plans like this will help us develop that master plan, but also be ready for grants and park foundation or whatever else comes along that can help us fund some of the activation of this land that we have and will get more of.
It's a great backbone. A good skeleton for what we need. Thank you for your efforts.
I would say too, I appreciate that the sort of mill area is left as like a thing to discover. So I still would like to put some, signage in history around that, but leave it as a place to discover for those that don't know where it is yet. Someday.
Yeah. So a few more questions, if I may. Going back to the water access, what might the transitions at Small Street sewer facility, what might that do to impact water levels here? Are we ever going to lose the discharge volume there?
So that is something that's still up in the air with Tri River. They talked about keeping it. They talked about, doing away with that sewer plant, and they have not come to 100% determination on what they're going to do. And it could be another 10 years before they know.
Yeah. So we might plan a water access and then have very little water.
You would definitely have less water. Yep.
I do remember hearing that actually there were some biologists and other folks who are interested in such things who noted that the ecosystem along this creek actually improved with our discharge, the increase of discharge from small street plant, because it allowed for year-round flow. So let's watch that carefully, please. And another kind of ecosystem set of comments. Lila still has shared with me that he has just had tremendous impact with relatively small investments in invasive eradication, seeing just a proliferation of local species and ecosystems blooming forth. He's very excited about the prospect of getting onto this public land with volunteers. And I have heard that there are a lot of volunteers who do want to do this work. And I'm not hearing it just from him. I'm hearing it from other directions. And so I believe that it's true. Is it something that we can commit to develop a long-term relationship with the community to begin this kind of invasive eradication on the 72 acres?
Of course,
Wonderful.
we love volunteers.
Yeah. And maybe it's a memorandum of understanding or something like that to formalize it so that a nonprofit organization could run that show entirely and we wouldn't have to put labor into it. That would be wonderful. To the extent that we might do that, I can imagine a place where the town would participate would be with management of the derived biomass. You know, when all of that autumn olive is ripped out of the ground and stacked, then can we once a year hire a chipper kind of thing? I think that would be a really good way to support that effort. And I do believe that he's right and that Arlo Astil is right in articulating that once we get in there, we will understand that land much better. And perhaps the mill, Mayor Shipp, as you point out, and other features will emerge. I'm hopeful that we might find some topography that is conducive to a natural amphitheater, or it might also need some additional work, earth moving work. But we've for years been hearing from various sectors, people want a performance space in town. And the Forest Theater near UNC Chapel Hill is just such an amazing feature. And it's a draw and an attraction, and people get married there. And you know, granted, that was probably a very substantial and expensive work products administration project. But if we could do something along those lines, while also stewarding the tree cover to recover from the clear cut of a few years ago, so that eventually it would be an amphitheater shrouded in trees, or just any kind of attraction that we can think of, where people can come and visit and then also enjoy the features and amenities at the at the plant. I think that would be a marvelous interaction between this park and that local business. And then I think I had some other thoughts. Just overall, I am concerned about topography. The pump track, I think it's a great idea, especially right there next to the mountain bike trails. I am concerned that, you know, I've never designed a pump track, but intuitively to me, it seems like it would want to go along the contour lines rather than against the contour lines, pumping them all the way uphill and then having a long glide downhill. I don't know, but I'm curious about that. I'm curious about some other things where I see pretty stark straight lines on an area that you can make out, where you can make out the topography lines, and it doesn't seem to correspond. I don't see the logic coming forth there. So I hope maybe we can revisit some of those things. But certainly together we'll learn more about the land as we move forward into the future. I'm glad to know that this isn't the final plan, and it's shaped up a lot. It was a tremendous public input process. I'm very satisfied with the rigor of that. That was great. What else? What leapt out at me was possible conflicts between the multipurpose fields and the promenade. If there's ball sports going on there. I don't know about the scale of the land there, but I'm just wondering, is there a chance that balls might launch into someone's head as they're walking on the promenade?
This is really just kind of like an open space field, not necessarily encouraging a mini soccer field or things like that. Just, if people want to, go throw frisbee or have a picnic or things like that. It's not more active, right? It's more open. It's a multi-use space. Maybe even if you did kind of towards the bottom and we ended up wanting to do a little amphitheater or that's there and then could go out towards, that's certainly an option, just to have some space to where you just had an open field. If they wanted to play, just throw a football. My kids just go outside and throw, and they don't need a field. It's just they need a little open area.
Okay.
The panhandle is 428 feet wide. Yeah, so if the little panhandle sticking up says multipurpose field. So from the plant property over to our property line is 428 feet. So you got plenty of space in there to.
Okay.
Would we be able to do things like movies in the park at that multipurpose field? Because like I said, we can build it and they'll come, but if we give people a reason to come and reason to,
Yeah, that's exactly what I kind of envision for that space, and not having it as a formalized, active, athletic facility, right? With hard lines of, we want to make sure that we'll have, whether that's, spring Easter egg hunt, or whether that's a, movie in the parks, or a concert, right? Any of that type of stuff, that's what that facility is really going to be, just an open field for us to conduct those things on.
Okay, final question on the two overlooks, one at each end of the park. Can you tell us a little bit more about those? Are there natural promontories there, or are those intended to be structurally elevated somehow or on earth or something?
They're looking to be a little bit more elevated, just looking out, just like a, place to take a picture, or just to, given the elevation, it, depending on once we get in there and get a further look, we can determine what that actually looks like. Right now, it's kind of just a decking that's overlooking that area.
Okay, but hypothetically, this decking or the overlook structure would be like above the highest conceivable floodplain level, so that is a significant elevation over the water. Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Katie? And for moving forward on cost estimates and stuff, you're kind of looking for a general head nod discussion from us on this.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Broadly, is this good? Do you want to see less? Do you want to see more?
Good. Over time.
Yeah, it's good over time.
All right, up next, we will have a public hearing. So I'll ask for a motion to enter into the public hearing for CTA 2025-02 Unified Development Ordinance Amendment to Chapter 9.
So move.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Foley. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And who gets the opportunity?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Good afternoon. Originally, Randy Tingle was wanting to do this presentation. I requested to step in his place, given that this would be a committee that I would be heading up. And this is to update the UDO and add a section to chapter 9 under section 9.7, the technical review committee. In July of 2024, the team started to have meetings across the board, but this followed through a piece of the process and schedule that I wanted to actually discuss. So the pre-submittal happens first for a project, and then the community meeting happens after that, followed by the first submittal of an application, and then TRC, which is the technical review committee. That is when this would take place. Followed again by staff completes the reviews, it goes to the planning board, and then to the board of commissioners. So just to give you a reference of when this would take place. All right. See if I can read this. Okay, so the primary team that is part of this committee is Development Services, led by myself and the assistant chair, which is our planning director. In addition, you're looking at the Parks and Rec and downtown departments as well. So that's the core of the piece. And each submittal that comes in, the entire team looks at it and figures out who is impacted by that piece. Am I asking for NCDOT or is it a town road? And then making sure that those individuals are present at the meeting. So those items, it is particular to each project. That includes Tri River or any additional, both internal and external. And then we already have a schedule set every Tuesday from 1 to 3 p.m. There is a 45-minute session followed by 15 minutes. The 45 minutes is to actually meet with the developers on the individual projects, and they get a slot just as if we were having that submittal would be due the week before to make sure that we had all the documentation. And then 15 minutes to reset for the next piece. And it's every Tuesday. And then that way we have the county and all the actual additional outside partners in that meeting. So the request by the staff is to amend the UDO and a motion to approve that under ZTA 2025-02. Is there additional?
Yes, Ms. Armstrong, I've heard of bodies like one-stop shops in local government where applicants can come and get all their questions answered at once. Is this kind of what?
This is that, this is the technical side of that, yes. So that shop.
And the benefit to the development community is clear, and I think that's admirable and good intent. I am curious also about the overlap, if there is any, between this technical review committee and the technical review committee for the Chatham Park project.
There, we have separate meetings set aside for Chatham Park. Those are actually going to move to a Thursday meeting separate from this, go through that entire process. So this is all the other developments through this piece.
But there's overlap in terms of the membership?
Yes, so county, fire marshal, Tri River Water, the same list exists, whichever are impacted are invited to that meeting specifically for that section.
Thanks for the clarification. That's really all my questions.
And this is a current process or policy. We're just kind of codifying it in a UDO.
It's we're just identifying the process and making it so I can see it clearly and know who could be in that meeting.
Okay. There's no one signed up to speak at the public hearing. I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Thank you, Commissioner Farrell. Second, Commissioner Bonitz. Any other discussion? I'll I'll take a motion to approve text amendment ZTA 2025-02 as submitted.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Bonitz. Second?
Second.
Yeah, Commissioner Farrell.
Oh, ladies.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Up next, we have a few appointments for the Board of Adjustment. There were, I believe, 3 applications for 5 positions.
I make a motion to go ahead and table this for 30 days to allow the town to open this up for more. I understand, just correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing to go in front of the Board Adjustments in the next month, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and you have gotten some more applications in since, okay. So if it's okay, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and table this for till the next meeting, give town some more time to get.
Until the March meeting.
Till the March till the March meeting. And I'd also, one of the things that kind of hit me with these appointments is the application and the process. I would like to see if staff could come up with something a little bit more in-depth on vetting potential board applicants and maybe even an interview process. I mean, we got these on Tuesday. I would have loved to have sat down and met with them and done a little bit more in-depth, I guess we could call it an interview process. So if that's something that we could kind of look into.
I will second the motion and encourage us to have a conversation about the second item.
Okay, so just to be, the motion is to table this until the March meeting with staff for to re-advertise.
Yes.
Okay. And so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I'd like to say, I very much want to ask of myself that I make efforts to actively recruit more applicants. And so I hope we'll all think about that, who we can ask to apply. Do we want to discuss a little bit further your second idea?
Yeah, and I would like to, is there a way we can get the applications that have come in earlier than, as they come in? Is that something we could do? Because like, I would love to meet with them and talk to them. Maybe I can, maybe I can't, but I would love to see the applications as they come in.
I think my only question about that is if we would, I think it'd be important to meet with all of the candidates, if you're going to meet with any of the candidates. So that could be a bigger, if we get 20 applications, that could be a bigger process.
True.
We have in the past for.
What about like a subcommittee, maybe made up of some of the town staff and maybe somebody who's sitting on that board? Like, for example, if we had somebody for planning, we had Corey sit in on it or the chairperson, just to kind of give us an idea of what the board is lacking or what they would really love to see on the board, because they know better, I think, than even us. Applications would enhance the boards.
Like a review of the applications.
Yeah, or look at the subcommittee, and then they could give them to us.
Okay.
Just an idea.
So what occurs to me is that for so many years, we were kind of really begging folks to volunteer for boards. And we now have a greater abundance of people applying. And I'd be very happy. I'm encouraged, Commissioner Hunziker, that you're interested in meeting folks. I have so little time that I would simply prefer that we have maybe a more ramped up survey or questionnaire for applicants. Maybe just a little bit more detail for specific boards. What are others' thoughts?
Interesting idea, if I might speak first. But the details, the difficulty comes in the details of it. Who selects the subcommittee? How quickly does this have to happen? What if we have, like we said, 20 who is it that's vetting for us? I don't know if I want anybody else speaking for me. I think the process should require a little bit more time. I think we have these names given to us at the agenda. As the agenda package comes out, I think that's not enough time. A week, 5 business days. So that's something we want to consider. But having a subcommittee and having somebody else have their say on who may or may not consider what the board really needs is something that we want to talk about. So
I think too, if we look at our current process in the code of ordinances, and I'd love to revise the code of ordinances overall, but I think some of that is defined, or some committees are defined in there, some are not. So I think we look at that overall, and then also have staff look at what some other, even like recent changes by other municipalities and stuff like that, and see what would be the best course for us.
Mm-hmm.
But agreed, like we have a relatively new, good issue of a lot of applicants.
Yes.
For positions typically, so.
Pittsburgh 101 is paid off, and just the town growing is also paid off. Was anyone else curious to, when I'm reading through the applicants, I'm thinking, okay, so we just did a Board of Adjustments appointment a month ago. What are we anticipating? What future vacancies are going to be coming up this year? I was asking myself these kinds of questions. What's the current makeup of the board in question? So would anyone else like to see in these kinds of reports, or in these kinds of staff memos for new appointments, a little bit more information about
current
membership, who's going to be terming out,
So
who would need to be renewed when?
You're saying like repeat the website information in the packet?
That'd be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more administrative.
Yes.
Yeah, we can get you a breakdown.
Are the terms on the website?
They are. We can get you a breakdown. And then we can probably move the process forward a month or two. So if we see an opening coming, that we're 3 or 4 months down the road, then we go ahead and request applications, get those out to you a month prior, so you have a full month to review.
That'd be terrific. I think we kind of do that too, but if people leave or stuff like that, it's obviously out of our control, but I think we're typically. All right. Good discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, up next, we have return of the request for Chatham Parkway dedication, R5930A. Messick.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, this matter was tabled at the December meeting. But the issue that is before you is a resolution that would adopt the First Amendment to the 2023 Alternative Acceleration Agreement. Chatham Park has provided a timeline of what's happened about this road since 2020 that's in your agenda packet. And also there's a copy of the 2023 agreement that's in there as well. This proposed resolution would basically comply with what you did in 2023, which was to agree to facilitate the transfer of the easement rights for the Parkway from the landowners who are affected to convey those interests to the town, and then the town would convey the interest to DOT. It's essentially all that this resolution does. Stephen Perry from the Raleigh Law Firm representing Chatham Park is here if you have any questions.
Mr. Messick, can you, this is what DOT is waiting on to open that section of Chatham Park, or?
That's correct. That's correct. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, staff. I'm Stephen Perry. I work at Wyatt Robbins. I've been representing CPI folks at Preston for a good amount of the last couple of years. I've listened in on a lot of these meetings in person and digitally. So it's great to be in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can to explain how we got to where we are now and, yeah, answer any questions you have. So fire away.
Any other questions?
Have any questions? Maybe just a quick comment, for staff. As I was reading over this, Chatham Park agreed to pay reasonable rates to the town of Pittsburgh for staff. I assume we are being reimbursed for our services.
It's only in the event of money being passed through.
Right.
This has not got anything to do with money.
It sure says it right in here. CPI agrees to pay reasonable fees to the town of Pittsburgh for its staff to serve as an intermediary.
In the terms of the money, yes, sir. We're not dealing with money tonight. We're dealing with land. The amendment doesn't change that part.
Question was, I assume that the town is being reasonably paid for our transferring the money from the DOT.
We're not transferring money, sir.
Know that, Paul. I'm asking this question about this right here.
Yes, sir. It would apply if we had any money, we would charge a fee.
We are being reimbursed from Chatham Park, period. Is that?
We haven't gotten any money.
We haven't done any monies on this since it started.
No, sir.
Well,
Since 12/22.
And I don't know if there has been any request for reimbursement related to like admin expenses, which is, I think, the provision in the document that you're referring to. But I think if those requests have been, they would have definitely been complied with. But yeah, that is kind of separate and apart from what we're.
So I guess I'm going to rephrase the question in a different way. There are there's amount of time that our staff has used to come up with this agreement. And Mr. Messick has been paid for his time. Does Chatham Park pay our staff? I think that's your question.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, so there are provisions in this agreement, as there have been on others, that provide for a reimbursement for kind of admin-like expenses. I don't have the provision kind of directly in front of me now, but that is like consistent with my client's expectation that they would, hold up their end of the bargain with respect to that matter. But again, yeah, that is kind of separate and apart from what this amendment, relates to.
So what we're talking about is conveying easements, and that's it. We're not changing the road. We're not changing the designs. We're just obtaining easements so the DOT can move forward with their approvals. Is that correct?
Correct. And this amendment really does not, the town serving essentially as an intermediary for right-of-way and easement interest is something that was covered in the prior agreement. I mean, this existing amendment really serves the purpose of kind of bringing the agreement up to date based on changes in property ownership that have occurred since 2022. And then additionally, kind of DOT's right-of-way acquisition process commenced at a point in time when 5930 had not been split between A and B. So, but the agreements were put together at a time when the split was kind of in process. And so DOT started their acquisition process for 5930 as a whole. The agreements really focused on A, based on just kind of, that was the expectation at the time. Now it's, DOT's right-of-way acquisition process relates to the entirety of 5930. And so our thought was factually, it would make sense for these agreements to be modified to reflect things as they are now between owners and the scope of the right-of-way that DOT is acquiring.
So Mr. Jones has property that this highway would go over. Mr. Jones sells his property to Mr. Smith. So the easement has to be changed. Is that right? Is that what we're doing here?
It's more like the initial alternative acceleration agreements referenced a different affiliate as an owner who was going to convey property to the town, who would then convey it to DOT. Right. Now it's just a different owner, right? So in terms of recitals and who's doing what, makes sense to kind of update those things so that they're accurate.
In most of the other fundamental documents surrounding the Chatham Park project, the language has typically been the Chatham Park investors or their assignees. Would that language not have sufficed to cover WYW and DMB?
Cover it from what standpoint, I guess, is
Why is it necessary that WYW and DMB be named specifically now, when the prior language, I would assume, read assignees?
I don't know if the prior language referenced assignees. I do know that the existing agreement referenced, 15501 East was, I think, the name of the other CPI affiliate. And so, subsequent portions of the agreement said things like, the developer is going to convey and is going to call his affiliate 15501 East to convey. The 15501 East entity wasn't a signatory to that agreement, to the best of my kind of recollection. But again, this amendment would just kind of bring the agreement up to speed with how things are now, so that when people see a deed in the property records and they look back at this particular agreement, we don't want there to be kind of a disconnect there when it comes to what happened when and why.
Any other questions? All right. I'll take a motion to adopt the attached resolution authorizing alternative acceleration agreement amendment and related real property conveyances for NCDOT STIP project R5930A and R5930B.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Foley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hunziker. All those in discussion?
Yeah, thank you. I merely asked for the opportunity to speak. And I want to be clear that I'm going to vote against this. I'm not voting against this item because I oppose the completion of the Chatham Parkway project, nor because I wish to undo prior agreements. I'm voting no because this action that we're about to do reaffirms and ratifies a structure, and that structure permanently directs public funds towards a single private development. Over several years, this framework was shaped under pressure and misinformation and deception, and without a full public policy debate, in my opinion, about the long-term cost to the town. So simply because I understand that history, I can't support reaffirming it, even as I recognize that the project will move forward. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Motion passes. Thank you. Up next, we have a request for the Cape Fear Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Jonathan?
Sir. So we had got notified that the consultants would have liked this to be approved by the 15th of January. The existing plan expires in February. The county is planning to pass their plan in February, so we would be covered under the county's approval of that plan if this were tabled. But staff is recommending that you all table this indefinitely until we bring it back. There are some changes that need to be made within this. Specifically, I think section 5, page 499, that speaks to dams in the region that have no impact on public drinking water. And Commissioner Bonitz found this language. It is not correct because the Pittsburgh raw water intake certainly does depend on the Hall River Dam. There's some other things that we want to get changed in this. And so we just asked for a couple of months to work with the consultant and DEQ to get those changes put in. Spoke to both of them today, and they are willing to make some changes whenever we can provide that information to them. So that's it.
All right. I'll take a motion to postpone this indefinitely.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonitz. Second,
Second.
Discussion.
Thurber.
Discussion. I want to thank Commissioner Bonitz for catching that. Good job. I appreciate your diligence.
Yeah, great.
If I may, I'll belabor it just a moment, not to bask or anything, but through my day job, I'm privileged to have been introduced to hazard mitigation plans in 2019. And that was because we at the Clean Energy Technology Center have in particular relationships with entities like electric cooperatives who were looking at ways to leverage Federal Emergency Management Administration funding, FEMA funding, for things like more resilient fire station, which would have solar panels plus batteries instead of relying upon diesel fueled generators. And there was funding available for that. What we learned is that for a great number of federal projects having to do with resiliency against natural disasters or a dam break, if things are not explicit in that HMP, that hazard mitigation plan, then we can't go back to FEMA and ask for funding for it. So it's really vital that we get this language right and all the I's dotted and T's crossed, and any omissions that we find in it, we need to ask for them to be fixed. Runs on a 5-year cycle. FEMA does have a process for allowing minor edits in between those 5 years, but I think that this is substantial enough that I think we need to pause on it. So thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Up next, we have a closed session, so I will take a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to N.C.G.S. 143-318-11A3 to consult with the town attorney to consider and give instructions concerning a judicial action of 7 directions of service, Chatham Climate Action Network, and Haw River Assembly versus the town of Pittsboro, and A6 to discuss personnel.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Hunziker, second by Commissioner Foley. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
We have quorum.
I guess we make
All right. But we're back in open session. I will take a motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you, Commissioner Bonitz. Second,
Second.
Commissioner Foley. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.